Back to our channel. We are in blood physiology, hemoglobin, chapter 21 in guide 10. So actually I forgot to show some important pictures and also some related information in a textbook from previous lessons, that is you can see in blood and plasma proteins. So here once we need to see this some of the plasma proteins and their importance, which is very important. So you can see here albumin. It's mainly used for the maintenance of osmotic pressure. It also acts as carrier protein and also in buffering the capacity for acid-base balance. And immunoglobulins mainly are responsible for humoral immunity, transference for iron transport, seroplasmin for copper transport, C-reactive protein in acute phase reactant and inflammation, fibrinogen, blood coagulation, precursor of fibrin, coagulation factors, blood coagulation, hepatoglobin, hemoglobin transport outside the RBC, hemopexin, heme binding and transport, transthyretin, formerly known as prealbumin, binding and transport of thyroid hormone and also retinol. So these are some of the important things Chapan, and this diagram we didn't discuss. You can see here this is the reversible equilibrium among the tissue proteins, plasma proteins and plasma amino acids. So you can see these are the tissue cells, here the proteins and amino acids, here the liver cells, amino acids, proteins, and this is our capillary. So this is a reticuloendothelial cells. So you can see, as you know, inside the cells we have intracellular fluid and outside the cell we have extracellular fluid. That extracellular fluid is nothing but the fluid which is present in between these two cells and the plasma is also extracellular fluid. So you can see this plasma, how it is imbibed in the plasma protein, and these are the proteins and amino acids, just they get exchanged but not the plasma. You can see amino acids are being exchanged from the blood to the cell to provide the nutrition, and the plasma proteins are coming out. They can't enter inside the cell, so they are here. And imbibed plasma protein in the reticuloendothelial cells and amino acids. So this is what this is the tissue cells, this is a liver cell, this is a reticuloendothelial cell. And one more important point in our erythrocytes is, here you can see the physiological pathological variations in red blood cell count. So if there is increase in response to hypoxia, then it is physiological, because you know when our oxygen is low, our RBCs start producing more in the bone marrow. And increase in polycythemia is completely pathological. Polycythemia means nothing but increase in number of red blood cells. Here it is a pathological condition. And next, decrease in nutritional anemia, it is physiological, because you know because of nutrition decrease in anemia, so it's physiological. But decrease in hemolytic anemia, again this is pathological. Why? Because hemolysis means breakdown of RBC and undergoing the process of anemia. So this is pathological because there is breakdown of product, but this is nutritionally, as nutrition is not available, anemia. So physiological purpose are like, if you correct the cause, it can easily get converted into normal. So you can see if you correct the hypoxia, it gets normal. Whereas polycythemia, it is a disease because of some mutation or because of some disease it has come, so we need to give only medicine, we can't correct the proper cause. And in nutritional anemia also, if you take again proper nutrition, it will be back. Whereas hemolytic anemia is like pathological conditions, what we don't know what is the cause making it. So that's what we need to differ the physiological and pathological process. And next some of the erythropoiesis. Yeah, in erythropoiesis we have discussed everything already. So yeah, back to our hemoglobin part. So now let us discuss our hemoglobin. So before starting that, as always, we have some important terms. So you can see this is the cytochrome oxidase. You know, heme is mainly containing an enzyme and respiratory electron transport chain of mitochondria, that is nothing but the cytochrome oxidase. So cytochrome oxidase is a heme containing enzyme in respiratory electron transport chain. So it also contains heme in a respiratory electron transport chain, which is present in our mitochondria. And cytochromes. Cytochromes are membrane bound heme proteins that are involved in electrical electrons transport. And myoglobin, iron and oxygen binding protein, which is related. So myoglobin is both iron and oxygen binding protein, mainly related to the hemoglobin. It is found in the muscle tissue. So as we are saying, in blood we have our hemoglobin, so in muscle it has myoglobin. It is also involved in protein oxygen and iron binding, same like our hemoglobin. Next, let us see. Now we will understand the process of formation of hemoglobin. So you know, actually proerythroblast, we have already seen in the process of red blood cells formation. First the proerythroblast convert by different stages and finally into mature reticulocyte stage. Here it leaves the bone marrow and pass into the bloodstream and continue to form minute quantities of hemoglobin for another day or so until they become mature erythrocytes. So until they become mature erythrocytes, this process continues and finally form the mature erythrocytes, that is mature RBC. So first we will see uh, how our process of hemoglobin formation takes place. This is the formation of hemoglobin and by help of CoA coenzyme here. So let us see how it is formed. So first the succinyl CoA is formed in the Krebs metabolic cycle. So you can see here on the right side, this is the 2-succinyl CoA which is mainly formed from the Krebs metabolic cycle. It binds with the glycine. So you can see here binding it with the glycine to form mailing the pyrrole molecule. So you can see here this is the pyrrole molecule. So right. So first 2-succinyl CoA binding, this succinyl CoA is coming from the Krebs cycle. It binds with the 2-glycine to form a pyrrole ring. So you can see this is a pyrrole ring, right? Next, this 4 pyrroles combine to form the pyrrole molecule. So like this, each pyrrole, like this 4 pyrroles combine together to form a protophyrin 9. So protophyrin 9 is mainly formed with 4 pyrrole rings. And this 4 pyrroles with protophyrin 9 which then combines with the ferrum to form heme molecule. So you can say here protophyrin 9 means nothing but 4 pyrroles along with iron to form a heme molecule. So this is how heme molecule is formed in a hemoglobin. And next what happens, the next heme molecule is combined with a long polypeptide. So you can see here heme molecule with a long polypeptide, nothing but forming the hemoglobin chain. Hemoglobin chain may be alpha or beta according to its globin. If its globin is alpha, then we'll say it's alpha hemoglobin. If it's beta, its chain is beta, then we'll say beta hemoglobin. So this part, this flower-like part is made up of 4 pyrrole rings. So just now we have seen all this process. That 4 pyrrole ring will nothing but called as protoporphyrin 9. And next, this heme molecule is binding with a long polypeptide. Globin is synthesized by ribosomes and forming the subunit of the hemoglobin. So this is called as hemoglobin chain. And this hemoglobin chain, each chain has almost molecular weight of 16,000 and 40 of and 4 of this binds loosely to form the whole hemoglobin molecule. So you can see there are 4 chains which together bind and form hemoglobin molecule. So you can say 2 alpha chains and 2 beta chains together form a hemoglobin A. This hemoglobin A is mostly evident in adults. So yeah, we'll come back to our theory part. So we'll check out the different types of hemoglobin. As we have discussed how hemoglobin is formed, there are 4 types mainly: alpha type, beta, gamma and delta, mainly based upon the globin chains. So the most common type of hemoglobin in adults is mainly A. Hemoglobin A is made up of 2 alpha and 2 beta chains. So molecular weight is around 64,458. So each hemoglobin chain have a heme prosthetic group with the atom of ferrum because of there are 4 hemoglobin chains. So 4 hemoglobin chains, everyone have their own ferrum inside them, atom of ferrum inside them. So one finds 4 molecule of oxygen, or you can say 8 oxygen atoms transported by one hemoglobin molecule. So one hemoglobin molecule carries 4 molecules of oxygen, or else in the case of atoms, if you want to say 8 oxygen atoms are carried by one hemoglobin molecule. So the types of hemoglobin chains mainly determine the binding affinity for hemoglobin of oxygen, and in and A on in chains after the physical characteristics of. So this suggests that any abnormalities in a chains of hemoglobin, they alter the physical characteristics of hemoglobin, of course. So example you can take physically there means outside, if you see, we can easily find out that they are abnormal hemoglobins. So you can see mainly in sickle cell anemia, the amino acid valine is substituted by glutamic acid. So here this hemoglobin is now exposed to low oxygen and it forms the elongated crystals inside the red blood cells. So there are about 15 μm in length. So you know this, if they form crystals like this, they can't pass through the narrow ways, narrow circulatory pathways, so they stuck there and the macrophages come and engulf them. So this in turn causes anemia. So why we are saying sickle cell anemia? As the cell is in sickle shape, it is causing anemia. Why? Because it is stuck in the narrow pathways and it is easily getting attacked by a macrophage and it is causing anemia. So oxygen don't bind to ferrum in the hemoglobin and it binds loosely to the coordination bond of ferrum, which is extremely the loose bond. So it's easily reverse at the tissue to supply. So this is one of the important point. We know that hemoglobin carries oxygen. So how it carries oxygen? Mainly oxygen is not bounded to the ferrum. that is iron in hemoglobin, but our oxygen just it acts smartly. It binds only to the loosely by coordination bond of ferrum. Because of binding very loosely to the coordination bond of ferrum, whenever it is wanted to supply the tissue, it easily gets separated from the ferrum of hemoglobin and directly get into the cell and supply it. So this is how maintaining the loose bonds, loose covalent, loose coordination bonds help in reversing the reaction and finally entering into the tissue to supply it. So oxygen is carried as a molecular oxygen, so which means two oxygen atoms. So remember that oxygen is carried in the form of molecular oxygen, means it is nothing but called as two. You can say two oxygen atoms. So now let us see the iron metabolism. So before going to iron metabolism, first we need to see the basic structure of the hemoglobin molecule, showing one of the four heme chains that bind together to form a hemoglobin molecule. So you can see this is a polypeptide chain. This is a hemoglobin alpha or either beta. So you can see this is how, these are the four pyrrole rings around the ferrum. So you can see ferrum is exactly in the center, and surrounding it there are four pyrrole rings, and down you can see this is a polypeptide chain which is like a downward, and by this polypeptide chain we can conclude it whether it's belonging to alpha type or beta type. So this is the basic structure of our hemoglobin, and you can see here iron transport and metabolism. So first we will see the theory part and finally we will discuss this. And we need to see this first one because we have already completed hemoglobin, the inherited disorders of hemoglobin. So conditions are like normal, sometimes we are having normal globin chains in the case of alpha thalassemia, beta thalassemia. Abnormalities: reduce or no production of alpha globin chains, reduce or no production of beta globin chains. So the functional abnormality will be dysfunction of hemoglobin, either hemoglobin B or hemoglobin BARTs. So the dysfunctional erythropoiesis leading to unstable RBC membrane. So thalassemia means there is some abnormality in the globin chains. So it is divided into two types. If there is abnormality in alpha chain, and then alpha thalassemia. If abnormality in beta chain, then it's called beta thalassemia. So you can see the abnormality here is mainly there is reduction or no production of chains. As there is no production of chains, you can understand there is if chains are not present down, then you can say hemoglobin is not now proper hemoglobin, it is dysfunctional hemoglobin. So it also leads to dysfunctional erythropoiesis, like abnormal or mutated RBCs start forming, unstable RBCs start forming. And now let us see one more condition like abnormal globin chains. You know, in the case of S means here sickle cell anemia, C means here E means so these are all different types of abnormal conditions where you can see in the mutation of beta chain from valine amino acid is instead of valine it is glutamine, instead of lysine it is glutamine, instead of glutamine it's lysine, instead of tyrosine it's histamine. So you can see histidine. So these are the changing the positions, mutations in the position of beta globin chain. And you can see the functional abnormality like with there may be aggregation or shortened survival or shortened RBC survival, there may be microcytosis, and also there may be metamoglobin formation. So all these conditions are mainly due to this abnormal conditions which are inherited disorders of the hemoglobin. So now we'll move on to the iron metabolism. So iron metabolism is also helpful to mainly form the myoglobin, you know, myoglobin of muscles, cytochromes, cytochrome oxidase, peroxidase, catalase. All these are just now we have seen they are present in respiratory electron transport chain of our mitochondria. So iron metabolism, you know, the total ferrum which is present in our body is only 4 to 5 grams, and 65% is in the form of hemoglobin and 4% is in the form of myoglobin. Only 1% is in the various forms, various heme compounds that promote intracellular oxidation. So 0.1% is a combined form with the phosphorus transferrin in the plasma with the protein transferrin in the plasma. So it's a combined point. Only 0.1% is combined form, and 15 to 30% it is stored for the later use, mainly in the reticuloendothelial system and also liver. So in liver and reticuloendothelial system, our iron is stored, and the parenchymal cells mainly principally help in the formation of ferritin. So we know from liver many proteins are formed, same like other proteins, even from parenchymal cells, principally the ferritin protein is formed from the liver. And you know, iron first, so what happens if we take iron? So first iron enters into our small intestine. From small intestine it just combines with the plasma beta globin. From plasma beta globin and also with apotransferrin to form the transferrin. And after that transferrin is transported again back to the plasma. So if there is increased iron in blood, then it is stored in the liver, hepatocytes, and also less in some less part in reticuloendothelial cells of our bone marrow. So in cytoplasm, the ferrum is combined with the apoferritin to form the ferritin. So what is this apoferritin? Ferritin in cytoplasm, mainly it combines with the apoferritin protein to form the ferritin protein. So this apoferritin molecular weight is about 4,60,000 like that, and it forms a ferritin. This ferritin is called as storage ion in the tissues mainly. Storage iron. So the smaller quantity of iron is in storage pool are in extremely insoluble position called as hemosiderin, and hemosiderin collects in large clusters as large particles, whereas the ferritin is seen only by electron microscope. So you can see hemosiderin bigger, but the ferritin is only seen by here electron microscope. So when the iron in the plasma is very low, then some of the iron in the ferritin is removed easily and transported to transferrin in plasma and transported to ferritin in plasma and to the body wherever it is needed. So if you see this iron metabolism, I will explain you detail later, then you can easily understand about what I am talking now. So some of the ferrum in ferritin is removed easily and transported to the transferrin in plasma to body where it is needed, and transferrin is binding with uh, receptors red cell membrane of erythroblasts in the marrow, in the bone marrow, and it is ingested into the erythroblast by endocytosis. So the transferrin directly deliver the iron to the mitochondria. And next, if there is no transferrin, this causes a hypochromic anemia because there is no transfer of hemoglobin. So chromic means low concentration of hemoglobin. So hypochromic anemia, that is mainly red cells contain low hemoglobin than compared with normal. So hemoglobin from the RBC is destroyed mainly by monocyte macrophage system. Here the ferrum is also liberated and it is stored in the ferritin pool, and again it can be used when needed for the formation of any other new hemoglobin. So 0.6 milligrams of ferrum every day is lost in the fecus, and in bleeding the extra iron is lost, especially in female during menstrual cycles. There is menstrual loss, long term loss of about like 1 to 3 milligram per day. That much of iron is lost, and liver secretes the apotransferrin into the bile, and from bile it enters into bile duct, and from bile duct it enters into the duodenum, and apotransferrin along with the free iron bind with the hemoglobin, bind with the myoglobin, and myoglobin is mainly from the muscle meat. So the two important source of ferrum is diet, and this is combination which is called transferrin binding with the receptor on the interstitial epithelial cells, and next by mainly by the process of pinocytosis, the transferrin carrying its ferrum stored is absorbed into epithelial cells, and later it is released into the capillaries, and beneath this the cells to form the plasma transferrin. So even if more we eat, only some of the get, so how much of iron we eat, how much of iron we take from our body, only how much it should get absorbed, only that percent or that milligrams only it gets absorbed, even if we eat more. So all other one will just get out by means of fecus. So thus the total body ferrum regulated mainly by uh, altering absorption, and this is regulated by hepcidin hormone, and also by uh, refer refertopin protein. So our hepcidin and refertopin protein are very important. This receptor ferritoprotein is an is it's mainly a channel on a enterocyte. Channel on enterocyte. The next hepcidin causes the ferroportion internalization and also degradation, and decrease in ferrum transfer into blood plasma. So from duodenum, and hepcidin formation is regulated mainly by feedback of ferrum concentration in plasma and liver, as well as by erythropoietin demand for ferrum. Erythropoietin, it's present in kidney and its demand for ferrum. So all these factors mainly regulate our iron metabolism. So that's it. Only this is about our hemoglobin, very small chapter. So once we will check out this diagram to understand it clearly. This is iron transport and metabolism. So you can see the transferrin is present in plasma. So some of the ferrum which is excreted daily, by 0.6 milligrams daily and absorbed mainly from small intestine. So from small intestine, whatever food we have which is having iron rich food, it enters into the plasma first, and from plasma it by means of transferrin it is transferred into free iron form to tissues, first in the form of ferritin, it can be seen only by microscope, and hemosiderin it is used by tissues and heme, and also free iron is also required for different types of enzymes to work. In the presence of free irons, different types of enzymes work. So not only this, by help of transferrin, the iron goes into tissue. By help of transferrin, the iron is also moving to the red blood cells. So in the red blood cells, hemoglobin is formed mainly by means of iron. So iron is used mainly for the formation of hemoglobin in red cells. And this red cells, by this blood loss, about 0.7 milligrams of ferrum is daily lost in menses. And from hemoglobin, the degradation of hemoglobin by macrophages form again free iron, and this degraded hemoglobin is excreted by the form of bilirubin in the bile, from the liver. So this is a process. You can see how it is absorbed into the body, how it is excreted. So once again, let us see transferrin ferrum. It has come to the plasma by means of food. Whatever heat, it is absorbed into small intestine, entering into the plasma. So from the plasma, you have a special enzyme, transferrin, which transfers the iron from the plasma to different tissues, to red blood cells also. So from tissues, it enters in the form of free iron, and this free iron can useful for formation of ferritin in tissues, useful for formation of hemosiderin in tissues, heme in tissues, and also different enzymes in tissues. And next, this transferrin also transfers this iron from plasma to the red blood cells, and this iron is required for the formation of hemoglobin in the red cells, and some of the blood is lost mainly during menses, so that 0.7 milligrams of iron is lost in the menses. And from the hemoglobin, it enters into degradative hemoglobin, by means of macrophages. Then also again free iron is formed, and this macrophages also, by excrete them by means of bilirubin. So this is all the process of iron transport and metabolism. So that's it about our hemoglobin complete review.